Hi, I'm Edie Hand, and welcome into Prescription for Healthy Lifestyles. Dr. Daniel Potts and I have a great show for you today. We have Buddy Causey, who is an incredible musician and an overcoming stroke victim. You won't want to miss his story. We also have Dr. Evelyn Higgins, who's going to give us some tips on how to watch out for those signs of stroke. Stay with us after these messages.
Prescription for Healthy Lifestyles is brought to you in part by The Vein Guys. Better legs, better life.
I took up kickboxing a couple of months before I turned 60. I had varicose veins. My veins would just swell up and sting, and I thought, something needs to be done. As soon as the bandage came off, I noticed that, hey, that thing's gone. I really could go work out the next day. My legs feel fantastic. I wear short shorts. If you want to have your veins taken care of, get with it, sister.
Enjoy the latest books from Edie Hand, a portion of sales benefit charities such as St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Visit www.ediehandfoundation.org or your local or online bookstore. Pick up your copies today.
Children's of Alabama has been taking care of kids across our state for over 100 years. The opening of the Benjamin Russell Hospital for Children allows even more patient care. It leads the country in technology and innovation, including 17 state-of-the-art operating rooms, an expanded imaging center, and the Bruno Pediatric Heart Center, just to name a few. Children provides the highest level of care in a loving, comforting environment. I hope that you or anyone in your family never needs to be a patient, but if they do, Children's is here for you.
You're watching Prescription for Healthy Lifestyles with Edie Hand and Dr. Daniel Potts.
Welcome back to Prescription for Healthy Lifestyles. I'm Dr. Daniel Potts with my co-hostess Edie Hand, and we've got a very, very special show for you today, and we've got a celebrity with us today, Mr. Buddy Causey. Buddy, how in the world are you doing?
Man, I couldn't be better.
Buddy Causey is not only a celebrity and a musician, but he is a friend, and Buddy has got a story to tell us today that I think is really going to inspire all of you out there. And Buddy, I really am so glad that you joined us on the show today. We're not too far from your home up here in Tennessee today.
Correct.
And Buddy, I think the thing to do today would be to start out, and if you wouldn't mind, just tell the folks a little bit about who Buddy Causey is, how you got your start, and how people would know you.
Well, man, I started singing when I was in college in Jacksonville, Alabama. And should I give dates or not?
Give dates if you want to. That's all right.
I started recording in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and now in 2000. I didn't get that first 10 years, but I just got through with another project a month ago.
Buddy, tell me sort of who was influential in your early singing days, sort of who mentored you and who just kind of discovered you and got you out there.
Man, I discovered Ray Charles, which just made me discover the love of music. I mean, I like music, but that took it to another whole place. Anybody, for some reason, that was black and blind, I love their singing.
Right.
So, and I'm still that way. So.
Now, I would guess you would say that your forte is blues.
Yes.
And those influential voices of that day, like Ray Charles, etc., were very powerful for you. But you've been all over the world singing. You've sung with some of the greatest blues musicians in this world. You've recorded. People can find you all over the place. I actually met you, Buddy, in the year 2007 in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Tell us a little bit about what happened in your career about that time.
Career or life?
Life and career.
Well, at the time I was not doing music. I had taken a sabbatical, something about needed to eat at the time. So I was outside of Chicago and I lifted something up and I had an unusual stroke, but it floored me. And then I finally was able to come back to Tuscaloosa, where I met this guy named Dr. Potts, and we started a patient/friend relationship back then. And
absolutely.
kept me going, Doc. That's all I can tell you.
Buddy Causey came along at a time in my life when I was going through a lot as well. As a matter of fact, my father, Lester, had just died of Alzheimer's disease a month or two before Buddy had his stroke. And Buddy happened to come to me to seek neurologic care, referred from Chicago, and that's where I met this amazing man. Buddy's life changed there, as many people's lives change when they have an event like a stroke. And we're going to tell you, when we come back on this program, what Buddy has done with the rest of his life and how the hand of God has touched this man and given him an inspirational story to tell you. And we want you to not go away, because you're getting ready to hear about what Buddy Causey has done in the past few years. Stay tuned.
Prescription for Healthy Lifestyles is brought to you in part by Scott Crump Toyota Scion.
Hi, I'm Senna House, and I'm taking a minute with Children's to learn how to keep kids safe at home. This is my friend, Dr. Cherry Coco, and she's an emergency medicine physician at Children's. Dr. Coco, what are your top tips for keeping both babies and children safe at home?
For babies, crib safety is so important. You want to avoid pillows and heavy blankets and stuffed animals, plus the bumper pads around the crib. These can cause suffocation and entrapment. For children, toy safety is so important also. You want to make sure the toys are age appropriate for the child, plus you want to avoid toys with small parts, like strings, magnets. These can be dangerous. For more information, parents can go to their local pediatrician or the American Academy of Pediatrics website or the Children's of Alabama website.
Thank you. And until next time, stay safe.
You're watching Prescription for Healthy Lifestyles with Edie Hand and Dr. Daniel Potts.
Welcome back to Prescription for Healthy Lifestyles. I'm Dr. Daniel Potts, here with our co-hostess Edie Hand and our special guest, Mr. Buddy Causey. Welcome back, Buddy.
Thank you, brother man.
For those of you who just tuned in, Buddy Causey is an internationally known blues musician. He's toured all over the world. He knows some of the most famous musicians out there. And Buddy had a life-changing event that happened to him in 2007, and that's where we'll pick the story up. Buddy had a stroke, didn't you, Buddy?
Yes, sir.
If you can look back, Buddy, on that time and tell us a little bit about, in some more detail, what you experienced, what symptoms you had, and how you felt that day that you had the stroke.
Well, I was going to fly back for the first time in about a month to see my family, and it was about 4:35 in the morning. I had to drive to Chicago. And I got out and I was putting something up. And when I did, it felt like somebody hit me in the head with a shovel. And then the condo where I was staying was this direction. And when I'd try to walk that way, I went this way. And I finally got on my hands and knees and crawled in the snow and got my other suitcase and brought it back out. And then, this is going to be gross, but once I got in the car, I was still going to try to drive Chicago. I thought I had the flu. I couldn't stop throwing up. So I finally called 911 and they put me in the hospital. So that was kind of the symptoms leading up.
You were at, I believe, if I'm not wrong, you were at Loyola Medical Center in Chicago. Is that right?
Yes.
And you had some really, really good medical care there. I happen to know and respect some of the physicians that took care of you there at Loyola, and they treated you, I'm sure, very appropriately and with respect and compassion. I want to step back here and talk a little bit about, for those of you that may not know, what a stroke is. What does that word mean, and what are some of the common symptoms that we might have if we're having a stroke? A stroke really is a brain attack, and we have a way of comparing stroke to heart attack because in many ways they're similar conditions. Both of them usually involve a blood vessel. In the case of a heart attack, it's a blood vessel to your heart or one of the coronary arteries. In the case of a stroke, it's a blood vessel that goes to your brain. This blood vessel usually becomes narrow or blocked. And because of that blockage, part of your brain does without blood flow. And when your brain does without blood flow, those nerve cells, those brain cells, cannot go very long without blood flow and oxygen and nutrients. So if this blood flow is shut off long enough, it kills a part of the brain. And this can be just a few minutes, actually. Now, if you are fortunate enough to to have a blood clot that is dissolved after it forms, then you may not have a stroke. You might have what we call a TIA, which is a transient ischemic attack. Now this TIA is going to be a stroke if it lasts long enough, but if it goes away within, usually within the 20 or 30 minutes, but certainly within the first day, then you don't have a stroke, you have a TIA, and you're fortunate because that is a warning sign that you might have a stroke in the future. So a blood vessel gets blocked with a blood clot. If it's blocked long enough, brain tissue dies and you have a stroke, and you're left with a permanent injury to some extent. Although, as Buddy can tell you in a minute and will tell us, with rehabilitation and time and God's grace, many of these symptoms can get much better and actually go away. Now, you heard the symptoms of Buddy's stroke, which included imbalance, veering to one side, some visual disturbances, some speech disturbances, and some nausea, headache. These are common symptoms of stroke, as are these. Sudden loss of vision, especially in one eye or in half of your visual field, for instance, completely to the left or completely to the right. Sudden inability to speak, inability to get your words out, right, Buddy? Inability to get your words out, think of what you want to say but can't get them out. Inability to understand what someone is saying to you. Sudden weakness or numbness on half of your body or face. A headache, like Buddy had. Sudden imbalance. Vertigo, which is a spinning or movement sensation. Sudden nausea associated with these other symptoms. These are some of the common symptoms of stroke. And actually, there's a kind of stroke that's a bleeding stroke, Buddy. It's a cerebral hemorrhage. And those can really be bad and catastrophic and can result in death. Most strokes, though, like Buddy had, do not result in death. They just give you a disability. And time is brain. That's a statement that I want to really emphasize for you all. Time is brain. In other words, if you have these symptoms, you or someone has to call 911 and you have to get to the nearest emergency department because stroke can be treated with medications that dissolve blood clots. So, the American Stroke Association and the American Heart Association and the American Academy of Neurology can help more with stroke symptoms. But Buddy had a particular kind of stroke. You see, I happened to meet Buddy about that time, and we sort of established a doctor-patient relationship. I was in Tuscaloosa at that time, still am, and Buddy was referred from Loyola Medical Center. I walked into your room, Buddy, and I actually felt overwhelmed because, number one, I was meeting a celebrity. Number two, he had been taken care of by a wonderful neurologist in Chicago whose books I'd read. And number three, my own dad had just passed away, so I was not in a very good state of mind. And I came in and met this inspiring man. So, Buddy, tell me a little bit about what happened to you after the stroke and how you rehabbed and how you got better.
Well, the biggest thing was I turned my life. I went to a church that just loved me so much that I couldn't help but go back, and I started reading the Bible more. When I lost my voice, I prayed to God if He'd just let me have my voice, let me sing again. I would do music for Him, and I'd tell people my story, which is what I'm doing right now. And so I started recording up here with a friend of mine, Blue Miller, and I did one song, and can you say suck on television?
I think so.
All right, well, I sucked. I could just hardly do it. And then I came back about a year later, and we cut that first night, and I was ready to quit. And Blue had just taken, they'll cut a bunch of things, and then, anyway, he pieced it together, and it sounded pretty good. So it gave me a little confidence. And then the next day, we went full tilt. So anyway, we ended up doing an album over the next year, and now I just released it. It's like Little Feat meets Jesus. It's funky. It's got a little bit of everything, but it's true in the word as far as it tells about real things. It tells about stuff that happened in my life that were real.
The name of this album is Well Done?
Well Done, My Son.
Well Done, My Son, and that's a title cut off this album. This album, folks, is amazing, and it speaks to inspiration, it speaks to overcoming, it speaks to grace. And folks that have a disability out there, whether it's from stroke or whatever, you can overcome.
Yes.
And you can push through this. And go out there and listen to Buddy Causey. Google Buddy Causey and you'll be inspired. My brother, I appreciate you being on the show today.
Brother man.
And you got to come back and sing for us sometime.
Absolutely love to.
We appreciate you tuning in to Prescription for Healthy Lifestyles, and we hope you will listen to us again. I'm Dr. Daniel Potts for Edie Hand. Thank you.
You used the strength of my power, my words covered your life. Well done, my son.
Prescription for Healthy Lifestyles, brought to you in part by Autotex Pink. Change your blades, change a life.
Hi, I'm Senna House. I'm taking a minute with children to learn about car seat safety. I'm here with Miss Marie Crew, coordinator of an important program called Alabama Safe Kids at Children's. Miss Marie, what does the American Academy of Pediatrics tell us about children riding in the car?
They tell us that children should stay rear-facing until they're 2 years old. At that time, they can go forward-facing as long as they have an internal harness until they're 40 pounds. Then they need to go to a booster seat, and they need to stay in the booster seat until they're around 4 foot 9 inches, and that's somewhere between 8 and 12 years old.
Who should parents call if they have questions about installing a car or a booster seat?
They can call us here at Children's at 1-800-504-9768.
Thanks so much for this valuable information, and thank you for joining us for A Minute with Children. I'm Senna House, and until next time, buckle up.
Here's a prescription for a better life with Dr. Evelyn Higgins.
And today's Health Minute is about stroke and stroke prevention. The biggest thing you can do if you're a smoker is to stop smoking. And I say that like it's very easy because I'm not a smoker. I understand that you're saying, you're at home saying, oh yeah, sure, you don't smoke, you don't know what it's like. I get all that, but there are so many programs that are out there. Just find the one that works for you, even if it means getting on medications to increase the serotonin levels or the feel-good chemicals that smoking used to do for you. Substitute it until we get you to the point where you stop smoking. We all have to look at your weight. You have to be within a healthy weight range. And the biggest thing is stress in your life. 60 to 90% of doctors' visits are stress related, whether it be congestive heart failure, depression, anxiety, any of those diseases all related to stress. You take all those things together, that's how to prevent a stroke.
Prescription for Healthy Lifestyles is brought to you in part by the Edie Hand Foundation. www.ediehandfoundation.org.
Hi, I'm Senna House, and I'm taking a minute with Children's to learn a few things about sunscreen safety. This is my friend Tracy Duncan, and she's a nurse practitioner with the dermatology clinic here at Children's. Tracy, why is sunscreen so important?
Sunscreen is important because it provides protection against damaging UV rays. We can't completely avoid the sun, so by applying a daily broad spectrum sunscreen that contains UVA and UVB protection, we decrease our risks of skin cancer such as melanoma. Melanoma is a very dangerous form of skin cancer. More deaths occur from melanoma than any other skin disease.
How often should sunscreen be applied?
It should be applied every 2 hours, more often if the skin is wet from swimming or perspiration. A general rule of thumb is a tablespoon is enough product to cover exposed skin.
What are the risks of not using sunscreen?
Again, skin cancer. Melanoma would be the most dangerous form.
Thanks so much for being here with us today, Tracy. I'm Senna House, and we'll see you next time on A Minute with Children. Till then, make sure you're wearing that sunscreen.
There's an art to making tea. At Red Diamond, it begins with tea leaves and nothing else. We remove the stems and twigs that come with the tea, leaving just the leaf for a flavorful, refreshing taste. There's an art to making the perfect pitcher of tea, and we practice it every day. Drink fresh. Drink Red Diamond.
Prescription for Healthy Lifestyles wants to help you pave the way to a better life.
Welcome back to Prescription for Healthy Lifestyles. This is our You Paved the Way segment where we're trying to make a difference for you in your life. And joining me is Dr. Evelyn Higgins. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Edie. My pleasure.
You know, we've been talking about strokes today, and I know that personally you know a lot about that firsthand. Would you share some advice that you might could help some of our viewers out
Actually,
there?
I would love to do that because what people said to me was, looking at you, that can't be possible. Because I was not overweight, I exercised, didn't smoke, didn't drink, ate well. Stress was unbelievable in my life, to the point where I was sleeping 2 to 3 hours a night and just keep going and going, and thought I could do that because I had to. You know, this is what has to get done. And, you know, I was a mom first, then I was a physician. I'd go to work, I have my patients, have to be there by this time. Everything was bump, 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 knowing every day that I could not complete the tasks that I had to complete. That became overwhelming, I guess, to my body, because my mind said, no, you can do it. My body said, I'm going to stop you. And thank God it did, because it
saved your life, didn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. I said, the big guy said, you know what, I'm going to take you out because you won't stop and listen. And actually, I had 2 of them.
What were the signs? Besides the stress, of course.
The signs of the stress?
Yes.
Sleeping 2 to 3 hours a night was probably the biggest sign, when your brain won't shut down. That's a tell-all, because that's a normal function of your body. And when those normal things don't happen the way they should anymore, that's an indication that there's a lot that's going on that you really need to look at. But I just kept going about and doing everything I had to do. I had 2 of them, as I said. The first time I kind of got myself back together, and I had dropped my daughter off at school. I had to go to work. I couldn't drive. I couldn't see. And I waited about 40 minutes in the parking lot saying, you got to go, you have things to do, and got myself there. The second one happened several weeks after that, to where I was totally debilitated over a couple of hours of time. And actually, I was with patients, and my office manager came in when I was back at my desk, and I was just kind of slumped over at the desk, and she said, Doc, you don't look good. And I said, I don't feel good. She said, why don't you go lay down? She called in her husband, who was an EMT, and he said, Doc, you're having a stroke. And I said, I know. You know, of course, you're in control, right? I know.
Yes.
And she said, we're going to call the ambulance. I said, don't call an ambulance. I said, just drive me to the hospital. Now, I'm you know, giving out the orders as
You
we
should
leave.
have been
Right.
letting them take care of you.
By the time we got to the hospital, which was about 15 minutes later, I couldn't walk. I couldn't talk. I had to go in by a wheelchair, and then couldn't even process the information and give them the answers to the questions they were asking me.
That is a message to say to everyone, do not try to be in control. Let them take care of you.
Don't play God.
Yes.
That's right.
You know, and that's so hard, isn't it,
That's
sometimes?
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Because I know from my own mother that had a massive stroke. She had the mini strokes first, was
Right.
probably what
That's
you were
what- yeah,
having.
right.
And they say if you get to the hospital, within the first hour, you have a chance to recover.
Right. Which I did fully recover, thankfully. But what happens is you have a stronger predilection to have a full stroke like your mother did if you don't pay attention to these signs of mini stroke.
And it took her, she lost her speech and brought on onset of early dementia,
Right.
which can.
Right.
So I say that's very important to people, that they
Absolutely.
listen to their body. And I must say myself that I am a workaholic. Most of my friends are, and I'm thinking we all need to stop a little bit more and make a difference. But thank you for sharing that personal story with us today.
Thank you.
on
I
stroke.
hope someone hears it and changes their life as a result of it.
I agree. And we hope you'll join us again next week.